Good afternoon or evening or night, morning, I don't know, whenever you're listening or watching. This is Unpopular Opinions. I'm Ryan Tofil. Today, I woke up to a text from my mom saying that her life was better before I was born. So that strained our relationship a little bit and led us to our topic for today's show, which is things you used to love that you just don't love anymore. One of those things is right here with me, Bryan Chai, who I think is going to show us his new nipple ring at some point in the show. He's not. All right.
My parents might watch.
But they know you have it now, so the cat's out the bag. Jumping right into it, one of the things I used to love a whole bunch that I'm just not as excited about as I used to be is media in general. I'm not a huge fan of superhero movies and stuff like that, and that seems like all of the biggest movies in the past few years have been superhero movies. And, you know, and maybe I'll even broaden that to just say media in general. My favorite form of media has always been video games, and I do love me some 90s, late 80s gaming, but I don't get as pumped about new releases as I feel like I used to. You know, Far Cry coming out is a recent example for me. I remember Far Cry 2, I think it was, which was the first one on PS3.
Yeah,
I was watching trailers for that, and I had it pre-ordered and everything, and now they're up to 5, which seemingly underwhelmed. And E3 was recently.
Yeah, I think kind of going off the general topic of things we used to love but don't love as much. I think for me, E3 isn't necessarily kind of in that camp, but it kind of is. I remember as a kid, it was always a big deal. I'd wait for the newest issue of EGM or GamePro or whatever, so I could flip through and see all the E3 coverage.
What did it? I don't know if PlayStation had them, but I remember being at Walmart and they used to have magazines with the demo discs right in them.
Yeah,
mostly for Xbox. What I don't remember what publication it was. I mean, we're talking. I mean, this is before online gaming.
Yeah, I mean, they used to pump out those demo discs. I remember I got a PlayStation 1 demo disc from
Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut.
Yeah, dude. They had Sled Storm on it.
Yep.
Which I actually just repurchased recently. I got a PS1 with the LCD screen for my office. I had to get Sled Storm.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of going off what you said about the media or just consuming media. I still love a lot of the stuff I did as a kid, superhero movies, comic books, all that. Still love video games, but to me, it's not so much as broad as media, but there are a lot of things that, I've gone back recently and rewatched and, two shows from my childhood, Rugrats and the original Power Rangers. I think original Power Rangers is available on Netflix, or at least used to be. So I caught up on some of that, and Rugrats is available on Hulu. And man, just watching those, it made me sad thinking I've kind of outgrown these shows. Like, these were such pivotal parts of my childhood. And I think just as you get older, you kind of, your tastes change,
What's Arthur doing these days? Because he was the aardvark that I really wanted to see.
I mean, nowadays, isn't Arthur kind of attached at the hip with LeBron James? The whole the mood meme?
Yeah. Oh, boy. LeBron James. I don't know if we want to spend another 30 minutes of another episode talking about him.
He was great, but he was not good enough. I'll just leave it at that.
You know what? I saw online today, because one of the things I'm always going on about LeBron is that his shooting quantity is way lower than who we consider the great scorers in the league to be, whether it's Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. And I was just going on about his efficiency, but you've seen Space Jam. Oh, yeah. Everybody's seen Space Jam, and the whole movie is based around like Michael Jordan. And I just saw on the internet today his usage percentage. So percentage of the time that he ended a possession on offense was 44% in that movie, which seems like the whole movie is just based, it's Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan. In real life, like the 98 NBA Finals Game 6, his usage percentage was 55, was 11 points higher than what it was in that movie, where the sole thing was watch Michael Jordan do this, and it was 11 points too low to be realistic. But getting back to video games in E3, what did you see this year?
I mean, just from a personal taste, really hyped for Spider-Man video game. It's coming out on the PS4 in September. Really looking forward to that.
Is this going to be better than the Batman Arkham games?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a tough one. Probably not, because Arkham did it first. It looks like Spider-Man's aping a lot of concepts from Arkham. But I mean, GTA was such a success.
Right.
All the games have to be open world now, so I'm fine with that. There's that. I was disappointed that we didn't get a release date for The Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that game. I actually kind of did like Microsoft's press conference. It wasn't the best, but I thought they did a good job laying out their future plans. Like nothing they announced is even remotely close to being done.
Right.
Like Halo Infinity or whatever it's being called, it has not even, I don't think it even has a year attached to it.
Yeah. One thing I'm getting worried about is Days Gone. That's 2019.
Yes,
I think they're shooting for. And what makes me concerned about that is I remember seeing information and previews and gameplay about this game 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I can't remember something that seemingly should have been released so long ago ever coming out and being that great of a game.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned that, because currently I am actually playing Final Fantasy 15, which had an infamously horrific development cycle. I think that game was announced probably in 2006 or 7.
I had no idea, so I'll just trust you.
It took them like 10 years for that game to get out, and I am enjoying it. So, I mean, it's not always a fault, but kind of going off that, something I've realized with my taste in video games is I just don't play these games from my childhood that I loved. I played all the Final Fantasies, Zelda, a lot of those classic RPGs. Now that I'm older, I just don't have the free time. I can't.
Yeah.
I tried to go back recently and play Final Fantasy 6, and I got a couple hours in, but man, it was just thinking to myself how many more hours I have ahead of me to beat the game, and it's just, I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, I think one of the things that turns me away from, I don't know if I'm going to say all RPGs or JRPG. I think to me what differentiates those things is like Pokemon and Zelda are an RPG.
Yes.
Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger are JRPGs.
Yes. Well, I mean, nowadays JRPG pretty much just means a game made in Japan, an RPG made in Japan. But I do know, like, historically, like, kind of that term-based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, the J in front of it just represents this is going to take more time than I'm going to find it worth. And just any game where much of the gameplay is based on just like not knowing what to do and having to like go around huge maps and stuff and just try different things.
Yeah.
It doesn't really appeal to me anymore. And maybe that's because that shtick, as a crutch for a game to lean on to elongate gameplay has run its course. Maybe I'm just getting older and I don't have the free time that I used to.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's the thing, though, right? Is like I am thoroughly enjoying Final Fantasy 15 right now. I know it's going to be like a 40, 50-hour game, and I got a long ways ahead of me. But right now, there's nothing out at the moment, so I can just focus on that. Yeah, my problem has always been, going back to like high school, I was juggling like 2 different Zeldas and 2 different Final Fantasies at the same time because I had all the time in the world. I had nothing to do but school and sports, and then I just go home and game. that is not an option anymore. So I mean, yeah, it does feel like a big part of falling out of love with things you used to love. I feel like so much of that has to do with just circumstance and, time and place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, why I don't restrict me falling out of love with media to just video games is because I think music is a big one.
Yeah.
And I used to love Taylor Swift in 1989. I went and got on release day, as did I with Reputation, and one of those I was really, really happy on the way home from Target because I had to drive 30 minutes to get the deluxe edition. But I can't think of a good, like a super hot album recently. Eminem, who was like the rapper
growing up for our age group. Yeah, he was a pretty big freaking deal.
Yeah.
Growing up. Yeah.
And I mean, some things like that, we've lost the icon that we grew up with. I don't know how popular golf is among 25-year-old people, but Tiger Woods is not really a factor on the PGA Tour leaderboards anymore. I still find it interesting. I don't know what the difference is, but when Eminem is like semi-active, I guess. I don't know how often you have
still makes music, I believe. Yeah, I think he's still active. I think he's still
when did it was Marshall Mathers.
I get all the albums mixed up.
Whatever the one after, it had his childhood home, the one with Rap God on it, and Marshall Mathers LP2, maybe.
Probably.
I feel like I may have been late high school or early college. Just, 7 years.
I was smack dab in the middle of high school when Eminem was kind of at his peak.
Yeah. And he's just doesn't seem to be going that hard on the new music anymore. I mean, he's probably a little less hungry than he used to be, like literally, he just doesn't need it. Whereas, he was so young and just looking to prove himself. And now, like, if you're the best rapper, there's only one way to go when you release something else, I
mean, it's the old theory I've heard about Kurt Cobain that he's revered as this, kind of punk rock god, because, I mean, as horrible as to say, because he passed away when he did, all we have is speculation of how good he could have been.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good chance if Kurt Cobain had never died, he'd be making just really bad music right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's very much a possibility.
Well, I'm trying to think of other examples of that because I know that that's a very interesting thing to think about, whether it's in music or sports, like who is never as great as they could have been. Maybe Vince Carter with his injuries in basketball, Eric Lindros in the NHL.
Yeah. It's funny that, bringing up Tiger a little while ago. I feel like golf is almost the exact opposite of kind of our general subject right now. I remember as a kid, I hated golf. My parents made me play. And I just resented every minute of it. And now that I'm an old man, I kind of wish I'd stuck with it. I think golf is an amazing sport. Like, I love watching it. And if I could play it, I would. But
yeah, I don't remember exactly. Oh, I was watching the World Cup on television, and I was thinking, what sport has the biggest gap between like really good or average people who are really good at the sport and professionals? I think that soccer, because like being able to kick a ball really well is such like an exclusive thing to soccer. That may be up there. I mean, hockey, you have to skate.
Yeah.
As like brutal as the NFL is and as just athletic as those guys are, I feel like that may be the sport that relies most on just pure athleticism, which would give like just a really athletic average guy more of a chance in that sport
Yeah. I remember reading something recently, and unfortunately, I apologize, I can't remember the specifics, but I do remember seeing something about how soccer requires the most skill because strength and athleticism play the smallest role in soccer versus other sports.
Yeah.
I've seen a paper, something along those lines.
And maybe it's just because strength and athleticism would then like carry over to other things that I feel like the average person would be able to make up ground in those areas. You know, if it's just some guy who's hanging on to his college glory days and is playing in all these different, you know, sports leagues and stuff like that. You know, he's in a softball league and a flag football league and a basketball league, and he's staying in really good shape. You know, obviously he's not going to be an NFL player, but I feel like the gap there, and, you know, even if he went home and trained, as of now, started training specifically to be in the NFL, if you're 30 years old, you're never going to make it. I'm just talking about, like, what sport could they go out there and kind of blend in? And I feel like if you just threw some guy onto a soccer field, just, man, good luck.
It'd be really apparent that he does not play soccer.
And I think that's how I feel about golf, because there is almost no athleticism other than, like, are you injured or are you not? Like, can you keep yourself, as long as you're in good enough shape to be able to not hurt yourself while you're swinging. These guys are swinging decently hard, so, you know, there is a chance of, you know, cracking a rib or something like that. But, like, once you get to the point where you're going to be able to stay healthy enough to play golf, that's pretty much where the athleticism ends. Yeah. And moves into just skills specific to that sport. And that's what keeps me interested in golf, is I have no illusions that no matter how many times I go out there and play golf, that I could possibly keep up with those guys. You know what I mean? Like, they are just so good at everything related to golf. And even though I have the ability to go out there and practice golf every day if I wanted to, which I may struggle to get 22 guys together to have a full football game, but I have the ability to go out there and play golf every day, and I know that there's never in a million years that I'm going to be able to hit the fairway at an 80% rate trying to smash it 330 yards.
You don't know that, man.
I mean, I golf a decent amount, probably well above average for just an average citizen, a little below average for someone who is into golf. Yeah. I mean, we're talking 2 or 3 times a month I'll go out. But just among the people out on an average course, I am terrible, absolutely terrible around the greens and with my approach shots, but I'm a better than average driver of the golf ball to just be out on the course, and I'll hit it, you know, 300 yards down the middle, maybe 10 to 20% of the time. And these guys on the tour are hitting it 40 yards further than me and more accurately 6 out of 10 times. And that's like the thing that I am best at in golf. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they would absolutely murder me around the greens and stuff like that. And I don't think that I could go compete in the NFL, but I definitely think that I'm better at golf than I am at football.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, yeah, there are some sports where just a significant enough talent gap will be all the difference in the world. I mean, I remember in high school when I was playing competitive team basketball, I thought I was hot stuff, and I played, and I was only on the JV squad at the time, and I played the varsity coach, who was like, you know, I believe he played in college. Probably could have had a cup of coffee with the NBA, and he just smoked me. It was something else.
Well, okay, you're in JV playing against the guy that played in Division 1.
Yeah.
you're done.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying, though. It's just like that talent gap is so significant.
Yes.
Like, there's just no shot. I would never.
Yeah.
We could have played to 100, and I probably wouldn't have scored more than 5.
Yeah. In just in sports, and I just want to reiterate, I do not think any average Joe has any chance making it in the NFL. Just the totally insignificant point I was trying to make is that I think the 0.00001% chance that somebody has of just deciding they're going to go to the NFL and doing it like as an adult is greater than the percentage of somebody just being able to all of a sudden, like, man, even if you're shooting in the 70s or you could almost be a scratch golfer at your home course, man, you got about 100,000 hours of work ahead of you to get rid of those final 5 strokes.
Yeah. I want to loop back to something you talked about with your kind of how you've fallen a bit out of love with media.
Right. Okay.
And so a theory that I kind of have is I feel like when we were younger, it was so much like kind of water cooler TV shows. I felt like were a little more prevalent. Like I remember as a kid in grade school, the big thing was pro wrestling. So every day, you know, during recess, lunch, we talked, man, did you see what happened on WCW Monday Nitro?
It's because there wasn't 10,000 things to watch.
There weren't 10,000 things
and
to
consume, so everyone was watching the same thing.
But I also feel like at that age, when you're in that great kind of the grade school level, I feel like that getting other people and like, I don't know what all the kids are going to be more likely to want to watch something, even if they're not interested, just because the other kids are doing it. You know. Like, I'm sure, you know, in my group of friends in grade school, there were a handful who didn't like pro wrestling, but watched it because that's what everyone else was talking about.
Okay. I
feel like as adults, that's just not a case anymore. Like, it is so rare for a television show to just be this cross-cultural hit, like a Game of Thrones or a Breaking Bad.
Those two are good examples. You know, when I think of something I'm going to talk to people at work about or like get a family around, what I think of first is sitcoms. And there is absolutely no way that anything in the last 20 years has compared to like the 90s. And I mean, you know, just in that we had Seinfeld and Friends and Frasier and Cheers.
Yeah.
And so you take those 4, like what out of the last 20 years, you've got The Office, Big Bang Theory, How I Met Your Mother. If you think that any of those are even close to something like Seinfeld.
Yeah, I mean, Seinfeld's just an all-time classic. But, you know, it is weird how you had 4 of them clustered so close together in kind of the 80s, 90s, you know, Cheers, Seinfeld, Friends, Frasier. And now because I think, I want to say like the early 2000s was kind of the Office started, what, 2005 or 6?
Yes.
And then that kind of overlapped a bit with How I Met Your Mother, which then kind of overlapped a bit with Big Bang Theory. But that's 3 in the last, you know, 13, 15 years.
Yeah. I remember, I mean, the Big Bang Theory, when that ended, there were a few guys at my college who thought
Big Bang Theory didn't end.
What did I mean? How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother. When How I Met Your Mother ended, there were a few guys at my college talking about it, but like entire cities were shut down when like Seinfeld was airing their last episode.
Yeah.
So I don't maybe that's just exclusive to comedy. I know that sitcoms I'm not nearly as excited about. I'm not necessarily into dramas as much, but you know, maybe Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead. You know, we've just shifted where the power shows in television, what genre they're in, and I'm just not as interested in a drama as I am a sitcom, so it's just less interesting for me.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just falsely assuming that there's a lull in the entire industry then.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong that there's definitely a lull. I mean, me personally, like, I think I prefer dramas to sitcoms, but let's just compare like Big Bang Theory, which is not it had a few good seasons. Currently, I believe they're in the midst of their 10th or 11th season. They've officially run out of ideas. It's not a great show right now. But I still watch it as opposed to The Walking Dead, which I think I watched the first 2, maybe 3 seasons, and I just checked out. Like it was all the same at a certain point for The Walking Dead. It was there might be a cure. Let's go towards it. Oh no, people died. Let's change direction. Like
I watched Breaking Bad and a few episodes of Better Call Saul, and you never seen like Game of Thrones. Better Call Saul didn't do it for me. Breaking Bad, I watched all of. I don't know if that was just a product of my situation. I played volleyball in college, and we had to go back to school a couple weeks early before classes started for volleyball practice, and so we'd have it in the morning, and then we'd practice for 3 or 4 hours, after going to the weight room and everything, and then my day would be done at noon. So these are hard practices, and I was going to bed really early to wake up for them. Mm-hmm. But even if I was in bed by 8 or 9, that means me and my roommate were blowing through a season of Breaking Bad in a day. I don't know if I was at a point in my life where I had a job and I wasn't just recovering from the college practice, that I would make time to watch Breaking Bad. And I know that I'm just way lower on passive media than most people are.
Mm-hmm. What were some of your favorite shows then? Like recently? Like
Trailer Park Boys.
Didn't watch it.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Ooh, not a fan.
No. I think Trailer Park Boys, to me, it stands out because I appreciate what I probably egotistically assume to be intelligence in writing, and things that I think people have to be smart to be able to come up with. And Trailer Park Boys is just about the most profane thing, and that will turn a lot of people off, is they think that a lot of the humor from the show just comes from like how often they'll drop the F-bomb hundreds of times a season. What I appreciate about it is that there are throwaway jokes that are just said like as the screen's transitioning or off screen, that I think like, okay, that person really had to understand comedy and comedy writing to be able to come up with. Yeah. And that's what I feel like Seinfeld was. Like The Big Bang Theory, I feel like that is what sheeple watch. Like if you want to turn your brain off and just look at a screen and be spoon-fed super low-hanging fruit, check out The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, my wife loves the show. I watch it.
I apologize.
I mean, my dogs are named Sheldon and Lenny.
I didn't know that. Never occurred to me that it was because of The Big Bang Theory.
It was. But no, it is true though. Like I remember watching, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. They take clips of Big Bang Theory and just remove the laugh track. It is so horrific, so awkward.
Yeah. I'm that 70s show, my girlfriend watches, and I'd been checking out a little bit of that. I don't know. It's okay. I definitely think it's more clever than something like The Big Bang Theory. I think that's where we started to see the gap being bridged from something like Seinfeld, where everything is pretty clearly well thought out beforehand. And then we start to, I don't want to call it lowbrow because they're not doing toilet humor. It's just like more obvious jokes where somebody's like, oh, like it is funny that this nerd thinks he has a chance with a hot girl.
Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Like, look at this loser.
Yeah.
That's just something that everybody can understand. Whereas like Seinfeld, something that is so dialogue driven and like based, the humor is found in like one word that they'll change in the sentence from how you would normally say it to it being said on the show that makes it funny.
Yep.
And that's just what I like more.
I think the other thing with those shows like Seinfeld and Frasier that I really loved was it's interesting to look at because it's such a difference between sitcoms today and sitcoms of 20 years ago. Where those shows lasted, what I think Frasier was like 13 seasons, some absurd number. Seinfeld was
I know
8
that
or 9.
Friends was up there. I think that 70s show was 8, I want to say, and by the end of it, Ashton Kutcher and Topher Grace were gone.
But that's
Seinfeld was 9.
9? Okay.
Yep.
So give or take 10 seasons. That seems to be the average lifespan of a sitcom. I feel like shows like Seinfeld and Frasier, even in their later seasons, they were great because the writing was so good.
Yeah.
But you look at even starting with like Friends, I thought the last 2 seasons were not good. The whole last season of How I Met Your Mother was a waste of time and it had a bad ending. The Office, I couldn't stand to really watch the show after Michael Scott left. Big Bang Theory, to give them credit where it's due, if you go back and watch some of the earlier seasons, there was some legitimately witty writing. But now, like you said, it's just these very simple jokes.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see like those shows do so much better. You know, maybe shows just last too long today, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things is like there's got to be a limit on the amount of funny things that there are, right?
One would think, yeah.
Like, so these people are not only having to avoid doing the same thing that they've done in their show, but now there's 30 or so more years of television history behind them compared to when Seinfeld first started.
Yeah.
You know, I believe their pilot was 89. You know, I think the first season was probably like fully on the air in 91.
I think you're right.
Because it was, man, 98 was their last season. Yeah, 89 through 98, boy. But you know, it's that there's just so much more that's already been done, and the amount of choices, the amount of television channels that there are now, the amount of other sources of video medium that, I mean, I'll be honest with you, most of my television watching, if you even want to call it that, is just YouTube shows. I love video games. I'll check out the Game Grumps every once in a while if I don't have anything else that I want to watch in particular, but I love just like 10 to 30 minute independently produced documentaries about like the gaming historian. I don't know, Norm Caruso, you know, he has no idea who either of us are or what Unpopular Opinion is, but go check out the gaming historian on YouTube. Like, I love stuff like that, and I'm not watching TV. I don't pay for cable. My roommate got an antenna and set it up so we'll get the local channels, but I lived without that for 6 months before.
Yeah. I wonder if, like, not listening to what you're saying, it sounds almost like a big factor in why we don't love things as children as we do now is just there's so much more stuff out there. You know what I mean? Like,
that it's hard to specialize in this media overload. Or
yeah, like as a kid, like everyone played Super Mario World because it came with Super Nintendo. Like nowadays, there are some tentpole games. Like, I'm sure a lot of people play Red Dead Redemption 2 when that comes out. But it just feels like you had to play Super Mario World back in the day because that was the game.
Yeah.
And, you know, there weren't a lot of other, like, not near as many options back then as there are now. Now it's like, you know, I boot up my PS4. I think maybe a little sad. I think I've officially hit 300 purchases on my PS4. So it's just like, you know, it's not like, you know, honestly, I feel like I waste so much time sitting in front of my TV, scrolling through what I have access to, deciding what I want to play. Yeah.
But part of me not being in love with television and movies is just like who I am. One is I am very set in my ways as far as what I like. Like, I apologize. I don't really like television. I don't really like movies. My favorite cuisine is American fast casual. And those are things that I don't care what evidence you come to me with. That is just how I'm going to feel. And I'm very stubborn in my tastes.
Yeah.
And I really like interactive media, I guess. Music, I would say, is the most passive thing.
Yeah.
That I will regularly engage in, but I like reading books because I've got it in my hand. I'm turning the pages. I don't use like a Kindle or anything. I like magazines because I'm turning the pages and I'm holding it in. Like you can't look away from a book and then just like pick up a few paragraphs later.
Yeah.
Like you can with a TV show, you know what I mean? Like if you look away, it's just kind of going in the background, and like a book stops when you're not reading it. And same with a video game. You know, I really like interactive media better. And for anybody who I offended with my Big Bang sheeple comment, you know, I will say that that's just my taste when I do watch sitcoms that I don't like to be spoon-fed, because if I am watching TV, there's a good chance that it's pro wrestling, which is not the most intellectual program that's ever been produced.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think my general television habits are down. Like, I do have cable and I pay for it. It just comes with the bundle, so I have cable.
Do you have home phone too then?
I do.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I don't want the home phone.
I that's the difference in our age gap. I know it's just like 7 years or whatever, but somewhere in there, nobody got a home phone and nobody got cable anymore.
All right, I didn't want the home. I did kind of want cable because it came with HBO and stuff, but I didn't want the landline. That's all the wife.
Okay.
My watching habits, despite having literally thousands of channels at my disposal, it's almost exclusively something on like Netflix or Hulu, like not even on cable.
Yeah.
Or pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the only things I really watch on TV nowadays is probably like, I mean, I love cooking shows. I like cooking, so I'll watch cooking shows. Whoa, what?
What the heck? Like Rachel Ray?
No, not Rachel Ray, but like, I don't know, Hell's Kitchen and MasterChef, like those kind of shows. I like those.
What?
Why is that such a surprise?
Oh my god. Cooking shows?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. To each his own. I never turned on a cook. Someone's got to be watching them because they make enough of them.
Yes. But yeah, so cooking shows and Shark Tank. That's pretty much what I watch on cable television these days.
Who's on Shark Tank? Some athletes on Shark Tank, right?
A-Rod.
That's right.
Yeah.
Boy, A-Rod, if he didn't lose that year to steroids and, you know, retire a little, he had 696 career home runs.
Yeah.
He had a shot at it, the home run record.
I mean, but he became a pariah. Like, no baseball team wanted anything to do with him.
Yeah. Maybe that was his 40-year-old season. I think he had single-digit home runs, so that's not what you want out of your DH. Going back to video games, and maybe this ties in with me liking things to be more interactive as compared to less, is games seem so much more innocent back in the day, where they weren't as fleshed out, and they kind of required you to be more engaged with them to get the most value out of them. I remember, like, one of my favorite games of all time is WWF Royal Rumble for the Genesis and Super Nintendo, and like, by the time I was old enough to start playing it, Shawn Michaels had his super kick as his finisher, but in the game it was a back suplex. So, you know, but you could do a run in like a jumping drop kick, just as one of the moves in the game. So like I would pretend that was him doing Sweet Chin music.
Yeah. And
there were, you know, like Call of Duty wasn't really a thing back then. So I used to, oh boy, what is it? It's Vanilla Cove. Vanilla Caves. It's the third world in Super Mario World. The level right before you face Wendy there's a bunch of bullet bills flying at you in all directions, and I used to pretend that Mario was like some war hero advancing on enemy grounds and just stuff like that, where you had to use your imagination so much more, and for some reason it just seemed cooler.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's because I was 8 then or 6 then, and I'm 26 now.
I mean, that's almost a generational thing. Just like the use of one's imagination, that's almost a generational thing.
Vanilla Dome.
Vanilla Dome. There we go. But yeah, the use of it, because like, you know, for me, I remember as a kid, it drove my parents up wild. I had a hiking backpack filled with action figures, like Star Wars, G.I. Joe, WWE, WWF, like just fill that. And I had my own, like WWF. I had my own league.
Yeah.
My action figures would fight. Yeah. And I'd keep tally of who won, like stuff like that. And like,
oh yeah, dude, that was awesome.
Yeah, like kids don't do that anymore.
No. I remember Stratomatic might be something different. I used to call it spinner baseball, where you had like little discs, and they were kind of like circle playing cards, but around the outside you had different spaces of where like a little game spinner could land. And you know, it was a spinner kind of like Life. The game of Life, where you would spin and then it would land on one of those things. And so each card had different size slots for like strikeouts and stuff like that. You know, so if you had Mark McGwire, he'd have a huge home run zone. And when your pitcher came up to bat, it was like, you know, teeny, like you're on Atkins, but you still want a slice of cake. You know, and you used to keep stats for that. And, my mom hated wrestling, so I used to have to...
My parents hated it too.
I used to have to wrestle with just other action figures. So, you know, I had like some Power Rangers for some of my action figures, but then like I built the ring out of it was like styrofoam, and I stuck pencils in it for the turnbuckles and put stringer on the outside. And, you know, I'd have... Power Rangers wrestling against a creature from the deep because I wasn't allowed to have wrestling action figures.
Yeah, I remember my big feud in my action figure league was Admiral Akbar versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That's the cross-species championship right there. That's even bigger than the Raw title.
But yeah, like I think that is a huge... I mean, I've lamented about this, you know, especially... at my previous job, it was at a theme park, so I saw, you know, lots of families, lots of kids, and just the sheer number of kids whose noses are just glued to their phone playing, you know, Candy Crush or whatever.
Is there like some legal reason that you can't say the name of the theme park?
Possibly.
Okay.
But yeah, they it's Disneyland. But yeah, no, just seeing that, and it was kind of like, man, like I never did that as a kid. Like I had a flip phone until I graduated from college. I had a flip phone, and I didn't get that flip phone until probably my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
So it was like until I turned 17, 18, like I didn't have just a smartphone to stare at.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. I think parents are doing their kids a disservice by giving them their phones that young.
Yes. I can understand it, though. I don't have children, but...
I mean, I'd want them to have a phone, but I don't know. Like, do they really need...
I'm not even talking about the debate of, like, does your kid need it for safety reasons if they get off at the wrong bus stop or something on their way home from school. I can understand that if your kid is wailing at 1 a.m., you can either rock them for an hour or you can give them an iPad.
Yeah.
Like, okay, man, when they're doing that every night, you know, you're talking that's 8 hours a week, which is a full night's sleep.
Yeah.
You know, so probably bad for the kids. I don't know if I blame. I don't. All right,
I mean, maybe that's fair.
I hate screaming babies, man.
All right, maybe that's fair. I meant more from like I don't know if stunted is the right word, but I feel like kids from a younger age rely on their imagination less. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly don't know what kids play with action figures like you and I used to when we were kids, you know?
I don't know when kids play with action figures. Like, I still play with action figures.
But yeah, it does feel like that lack of imagination stems from being spoon-fed video games, media, whatever, from such a young age. It's just yes, I agree with you. There are logistical reasons for children to have phones.
I mean, in video games in particular, I think that a great comparison is the manuals that we used to have and that we used to. Oh man, I used to be in the back of the van, like reading the manual from the game my parents just got me, like with an erection, because I couldn't wait to get home and put that in my Nintendo or maybe my Game Boy because it was just too dark in the van to play it.
Yeah.
And today, there is not that. You download it at home and you do a tutorial instead of reading a manual. And there isn't like a block of text like there used to be at the beginning of games or in a game. Like Super Mario Brothers, through Super Mario Brothers 3, there was no context in the game as to what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
You had to read the manual to figure out why the heck Mario was even going and smashing all these Goombas.
Yeah. Oh, man, you are so right about that. I used to love, like, I mean, it's not literature by any stretch, but just like the intro stories that usually take up, 2-3 pages. I loved reading those.
You know what used to be really cool was there used to be more detailed art in the book. Compared to what you would see in the game, because you were obviously limited by what a 16-bit machine could do, but you could just print out a color picture in the manual. So you would be able to, like, what would Yoshi look really close up that you could never see on Super Mario World because
it's pixels.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, those instruction booklets were something. I mean, nowadays, people or game companies, like the art they used to put in for free in the instruction booklets, it's like a pre-order bonus now.
Right. Anything, can you think of anything outside of media that would fit the topic of today's show? Like, I know I said my parents, but things you used to love that just don't do it for you anymore.
Food has been surprised, because I've always been like not a picky eater. I'll eat anything. But as I've gotten older, I do feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm fat and I think about calorie intake, but it's kind of like, I don't want to eat certain things I used to love as a kid anymore, like dino nuggets.
All right. I don't know if I ever thought dino nuggets were at the top of the chart, but
for like a 6-year-old, sure.
No, they're no competition for Dunkaroos.
What the heck's a Dunkaroo?
You don't know what a Dunkaroo is? They were like little animal crackers that just came with a container of cake frosting.
Oh, okay. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Then I remember the TV dinner for kids that had the penguin on it.
Yes,
those were pretty fun. Whenever my parents would make deluxe mac and cheese with the Velveeta, that was a treat. I do appreciate both of my parents very much.
Does it count? Does cheese count as something I've fallen out of love with because I've developed lactose intolerance as I've gotten older?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't need as much cheese anymore.
Well,
I do miss that from my childhood.
That's probably a good thing for everyone. Things that I don't. Alcohol. I guess I drink a considerably less amount of alcohol now than I used to.
I'm kind of in that same boat. I used to drink a lot in college, but since then, I mean, I have a beer here and there, but
yeah,
me and my roommate used to polish off like a handle of rum or whatever. I definitely can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I would love to drink as much as I used to. I just had so many problems with it that so many control problems where the only one I had the ability to control was the first one. And after that, it was like a switch where it's just, all right, time to get drunk, and then time to get wasted, and then time to get blackout. So, I guess I just came to a point in my life where I decided that the cons did not outweigh the pros when it came to drinking. So,
yeah,
been just over 4 years for me. I do wish that I actually got sober when I was in college, and I wish at some point in my life I would have been able to experience a craft beer, because I was in college and living on a college budget at the time and drinking Natty and Mike's Hards, and maybe if I was feeling fancy, a Coors Light. So like, I don't even know what something like a Sam Adams tastes like, because that was too expensive for me when I was drinking.
Oh man. Yeah. I, kind of along those lines, this kind of falls in our topic. Parties in general, like, I know you feel the occasional rager, but
the only reason that I throw the occasional rager is so I don't have to leave my house. So, like, I cannot feel bad about myself for staying in
when there's other people there,
and I get to stay in.
Yeah, well, because I remember just in college, like me and my roommates, we went to Home Depot and bought lumber to build our own beer pong table. And we'd have people over like every night, and at the time it was so much fun. But here I am, almost 10 years after college, and that just does not appeal to me whatsoever.
No exaggeration. I need probably 3 to 4 hours more sleep than I felt like I did 10 years ago. Yeah. When I was in high school, I was not very good about getting my homework done early, and I would start that after Family Guy was done at 11 on TV. So if I'm up until 1 or 2, and then I had to get up at 6 to catch the bus at like 6:40, that's 4 or 5 hours, and now I feel miserable.
Yeah,
if I'm not up around 8 or 9.
I mean, I think that's just a getting old thing. Like,
getting old, man.
Well, okay. I mean, it's not even like, I remember in college, there was a night. There were nights where I'd party with my buddies, and I'd have like a 10-page term paper.
What was the craziest thing that you ever did? Let's just go right for it then.
The craziest thing I ever did in college?
Yeah, I still want to hear about your 10-page paper. I used to write those pretty drunk. So, but I mean, I don't want anything that's like going to ruin your life if it gets out there. But I'm talking like a single instant.
The craziest thing I think I ever had in college was there was a huge rager at a neighbor's house, and I stopped by for a little bit, and I eventually just went back to my place. But shortly after I left the big rager, and it was like a little cul-de-sac, and I was living in a house. Cops broke the party up, and it was intense because there were like choppers flying over.
What? For a college party?
Yeah, because I guess it just got that out of hand. It was probably the biggest party.
Was it Project X, that movie?
I never saw Project X, but it was.
Kids had
big.
A big party. That's a synopsis.
It was probably the biggest party I've ever been to, and I remember. So like people were like, I opened the door, like me and my roommates are done, and we opened the door, and like we just saw people fleeing the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends started dancing in the police spotlight. And that brought a bunch of people into our house. So that was probably about as crazy as it got.
So you went home from that and wrote your 10-page paper?
Oh, no. The 10-page paper story was just talking about the lack of sleep thing. How I used to be able to party till 2, 3 in the morning, take like an hour nap, wake up at 4, and crank out a paper before my 9 o'clock class.
Yeah.
Like that, I could not function that way anymore. Not even close.
Do you think, like, do we actually feel that much worse? Or do we kind of just puss out?
I feel that one. I don't know about you, but I feel that much worse when I don't get like. My threshold is probably like 6. 6 is like the baseline. If I don't get 6, I'm just groggy and miserable.
Right. You're talking about. At first, I thought you were talking about like number of beers, and like I don't know if I've seen you drink a couple times. And you did not have 6, but you're talking about hours of sleep.
Yes.
Okay.
No. No, I currently I could probably drink like 2 cans of beer and I'll be done.
So I was watching Rambo last night. Rambo First Blood Part 2. And I saw in the credits James Cameron. And I'm like, that cannot be the same James Cameron as Terminator and Titanic.
Was it?
It was. So I went on Wikipedia to look it up, and it said that First Blood Part 2 was the most successful in the series and the most like synonymous with pop culture in America, which struck me as weird because when I think of the Rambo series, I think of the first one.
Yeah. Was like to me the most iconic thing of Rambo was just always the when he covered himself with mud. Was that happened?
That
in all
was
the movies,
that was in
that,
2.
That was okay. So maybe that's why. Not that singular moment is that iconic, but just to me, I remember just thinking,
yeah,
that
maybe
is gnarly.
it's just because of the I don't know what the point is. Just that I found something surprising to me was that Wikipedia claims that it's like without a doubt the defining Rambo movie is 2, and because that was the one that was parodied the most.
Yeah,
Hot Shots Part 2.
Yeah,
and that was when Rambo really reached the definition of what, like, okay,
it was peak Rambo.
Yeah. I mean, you think of Rambo, he has a headband, he has no shirt, he's holding the rocket launcher, and he's got black pants.
Yep.
And in the first one, he was in the snowy mountains he said he was going to Portland in the movie. So I don't, he was in Washington or Oregon.
Yeah. It's funny that you brought up that. Do you like James Cameron movies?
I don't really like movies in general, so when I watch them, they have got to be right up my alley. I like Sylvester Stallone.
So you like The Expendables?
I watched the first one, and in the second one, I thought it was cool because I love cigars, and he smokes cigar a lot in that one. I haven't gotten to the third one.
Okay.
But I have watched a lot of Sylvester Stallone's like bad movies, like Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger's not that great, but I can't. What the? Oh my gosh! the one with Bridget Nielsen that isn't Rocky. Scorpion.
I'm not a Sly Stallone connoisseur.
Oh my gosh! What is the name? It's something like Scorpion. Anyways, that'll just pop into my head in a few minutes. I have a feeling. James Cameron, I don't know if just in general he really tickles my fancy. I mean, I'm not a movie guy, so probably anything I say should just be ignored.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm always curious to see what people think about James Cameron because he has literally made one of my favorite movies of all time, Terminator 2, and he's literally made one of my least favorite movies of all time, and that's Titanic.
Well,
I hate Titanic.
It was just because it like didn't really have anything to do with the actual Titanic, or why do you hate the Titanic?
It's so contrite. I think it's such a contrite love story. I don't know. It did not do anything for me.
Cobra, not Scorpion. Freaking, I couldn't. That is how little I care about movies. Is that when I'm trying to name an underrated gem from my favorite actor, I can't even think of the name of the movie. Like I do not give a rip about movies. If movies stopped, I would not care. Like if sports didn't exist anymore and I couldn't watch the NBA and the NHL when the Sabres are relevant, you want to have fun with sports, you be an NHL fan in Buffalo, New York when the Sabres are doing well.
I've heard stories.
Because their NFL fan base is legendary, and the Bills haven't won a playoff game since 1995-6.
I think that's about right, yeah.
So when their hockey team was good, when they were winning the President's Trophy for most points in the league, man, that was a fun time. If sports just dropped off the face of the earth and watching them on television was no longer an option, I would be really upset. But movies, I don't care.
I'd be a little bummed, especially if I never find out what happens in Avengers 4. I'll be a little annoyed.
If they just weren't a thing, so I don't think you would have had the build up to.
If they weren't a thing, man, that's a thought experiment there. If movies didn't exist.
Well, I think then most of that conversation would be spent on now deciding what is a movie and what's not. Like
True.
Are now 20-minute TV episodes a movie because they're the longest type of media? True. Excuse me, I don't know what happened there.
By the way, one thing I do kind of agree with you on movies is I think there is a set limit on how long they should be. I don't think any movie should be longer than 3 hours. I think it's hard for anyone to enjoy anything if they're sitting there for more than 3 hours.
3 hours? Oh, okay.
Like, that's like the limit. That's what I'm saying.
That is 90 minutes longer than like my max for a movie. Yeah, Pulp Fiction. Like, it's on the best movies ever list of any respectable movie critic ever. And by the end, I'm like, okay, just, let's go, dude. Like, just get on with it, man.
That's how I felt watching WWE Money in the Bank last night. Including the pre-show, it was over 5 hours long.
Well, WrestleMania was a chore. Just getting back from vacation. Yesterday was Father's Day, and by the time here, by the time Money in the Bank was wrapping up, it was getting close to my birthday, and I started getting a bunch of contacts from home, you know, just checking in on me and stuff. And I didn't watch much of Money in the Bank. I watched
there were a few good
AJ
matches.
Styles and Nakamura, which was probably their best battle
In WWE, yes.
They were in Pro Japan.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can watch the whole match on YouTube, but Styles versus Nakamura from NJPW. Phenomenal if you like wrestling.
Okay, NJPW, what kind of hopes do you have for the Fire Pro Wrestling that's about to come out? Have you looked into that at all?
No, but it's funny that you brought it up because I think that is one video game that I have fallen out of love with since being a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Wrestling games in general?
No, yeah, I think so. The crazy thing is, I mean, I say that, and yet I've bought like the last 3 WWE 2Ks, but it's just like, I remember buying a wrestling game used to be like a seminal thing for me, and I'm still a wrestling fan. I watch it all the time. But, you know, I remember when I bought WWF No Mercy on the N64, I couldn't wait to get home. As soon as I got home, I just sunk hours and hours and hours into it. Now it's like, I play it, and, you know, obviously it looks much better, but I don't know, they just feel so soulless to me.
I think that's a good word to it, and I think that WWF Royal Rumble is the best wrestling video game ever. To me, the contact just feels so satisfying. Mm-hmm. I could do with a little less of the button mashing mechanics of the grapples, but you know, I think that once they moved to a 3D plane, wrestling got a lot harder to simulate. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I really like my Nintendo Switch, and if I could do all of my gaming on there, I would. So when I saw 2K18, WWE 2K18...
you got it for the Switch?
It was on sale for the Switch for like $20, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there is going to be nothing on there that makes me think that this is better than last year's. So why don't I just go home and play last year's on my PS4? And so I went home, and I didn't play last year's. I played Super Mega Baseball 2, which,
nice.
If you're still listening 1 hour and 3 minutes into this show, you must really respect my opinion. Please go try out Super Mega Baseball 2. It doesn't matter if you're not a baseball fan. It doesn't matter if you're not even a sports fan. Even if you don't like video games, this is what we talked about last episode, the definition of creating your own depth to a video game. It is so simple to pick up and play, and you can get as technical and into the game as you want, and it can go from being an arcade experience to a baseball sim, where, I mean, just the flight of the ball and stuff like that, and then the pitches are realistic, but presented in such a fun way that if you want to play an arcade game, it's there. And especially if you have an Xbox, there's your best baseball game. I have all 3 baseball games that are out right now. The Mega Baseball 2 is better than the show.
Wow.
And it is about a million light years ahead of RBI Baseball 18. I went onto Nintendo's website to see what their return policy was, because RBI Baseball was so bad. It was so bad. They should be embarrassed for letting... I saw a commercial for it the other day, and I couldn't believe that they would put that out there, because it just seems like a liability when people are like, oh, that looks cool. And then when they start playing it, they're never going to buy another video game again. The thing is brutal. It is terrible.
I've heard that about RBI Baseball. I'm not a big baseball guy.
I started talking a long time ago, and then I got really pumped because I remember an hour and 3 minutes in, I started this rant, and then RBI Baseball hit, and I just got so enraged that we're now an hour and 5 minutes in, and I just kept going.
It's all right. It's your show.
Whew. Boy, I'm getting a little sweaty. Yeah, go ahead and play Super Mega Baseball 2. That is one thing that I like way more than I used to. I think it's better than the first one. I played a few games in the first one, and it was okay, but this one really floats my boat, really greases my tin man, oils my tin man, tickles my fat guy.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, go home and do it. It was free on Xbox Live for a little bit, but
I don't have an Xbox. Is it only on Xbox?
No, it's on PS4 also.
Check it out.
I do prefer PS4 over Xbox. I'm just playing that one on Xbox because they gave it out for free.
Yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, we've covered just about everything there is left to cover.
Yep. I don't think I have much more to add right now.
All right. I haven't had much more of substance to add for quite some time, so we'll wrap it up there. Bye.